Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hi friends, welcome to a favorites of 2024 video. Yes, I know I'm starting kind of early in the year with these, but I want to do some of these like subgenre specific videos throughout the month of December, just to kind of sprinkle them in. Also, you know, if you're looking for gifts to give romance lovers in your life or ones that you want to buy with some, with some Christmas money that you get, I want to be recommending you some of my favorites so that you have those in mind. And so I'm going to be putting out a few that are, as I said, specific to subgenre. So there'll be a historical one, there's going to be a mafia one, there's going to be a small town and contemporary one, and a fantasy one as well, I believe. Those are the ones I have in mind to do. And then the first week of January, you'll be getting my full wrap-up of 2020 and my favorites of 2024 that go throughout the genres, if that makes sense. So yeah, and I wanted to start with historical romance, right? I did already do kind of the one that was reacting to your favorite mafia romances, and that one, I will be doing my favorite mafia as well. Now for the historical one, I'm going to kind of combine those two things. I'm going to be reacting to some of my viewers' favorite historical romances, and then I'm going to tell you my top 10 of the year, and I'm going to smush those together. Part of that is just because I'd rather do kind of one long discussion and chat video like that, and partly because, as I've shared recently, my historical romance videos don't do as well as they used to. And while I don't want to make this video a full-on like chat and reminiscence of like what's happening with historical romance, I know some of you already know about the conversation. I know some of you don't pay attention to any other social media at all. You're just here for recommendations and you don't care about that. And that's absolutely fine as well. I appreciate that about a lot of my YouTube channel audience, that you're just here for the recs. You want to grab the books I recommend or tell me which ones you recommend and not worry about any of that. But there is being kind of this like mini meltdown about publishers not re-upping historical romance authors' contracts, and there being a downslide in quality with those authors writing to the TikTok and the quick snappiness of what social media is asking out of romances right now. As this has been pervasive into a lot of subgenres. We've seen it in fantasy, and we've seen it in dark romance, and we've seen it in contemporary romance, so it's not exactly a surprise. But one of the things I think is indicative, okay, is because based on both the list I'm going to go through that you guys recommended and the ones that I'm going to tell you are my faves, a high percentage of these books were all like older ones, right? Like I don't have the exact number because I didn't count, but just a quick glance at the list, I think that less than half are new releases that made it onto people's favorites lists. So that tells me two things. On one side, it's encouraging, and in another side, it makes me nervous, because it means that people are finding some of the old favorites, which I love. Obviously, I love when a book that's been out 10, 15, 20 years gets a new like go around and everyone gets excited about it. And I love finding older authors that have a full backlist for me to dive into as well. It's one of the great things about falling for an older author when their entire collection is already out there. But it makes me nervous because it means there's not, at least the books that we're finding as high quality coming out now that gets us that excited, right? Because look at a lot of the other subgenres, that's not the case with as many of those. Now, I know not all of those subgenres have been as prevalent as historical has been, right? So that would make sense that their newer ones are what people are catching. But there are still historical romances being written, and they're not catching the attention as much as the same can be said for contemporary authors that are currently putting books out. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So, and one of the discussions that I was actually having on Patreon sprints with patrons, is that a lot of the greats who are still alive, we're not talking about the ones who are no longer with us, but a lot of the greats who are still alive, a lot of the greats that you're going to see on this list and the recommendations from viewers, they're not being asked to write more historical romance. So the favorites that people have are older of theirs. Now, again, I don't mean for this whole video to be about that, but what I do want to say is that, you know, I always want to have historical romance on my slate. And even if, you know, that's the thing, these books that are already written, they're not going anywhere. And I literally myself have 1,000 historical romance I haven't read. And I'm not exaggerating. I literally have between 800 and 1,000 unread historical mass market paperbacks there. On my Kindle, I have 200 or 300 of, you know, newish ones that are on there. So those aren't going anywhere, and those can still be discovered at any time. And what the beautiful part is about this social media that we can get dragged into and we see a lot of the negatives of, those things can be used for good as well. Think of how many authors that we love that their books from their backlist are getting new life, and it leads to those authors getting new contracts for things, right? And TikTok did that. And so we can lament about that and complain about it, or we can find ways to use those tools for ourselves as well. You know, there are some magnificent stories in every subgenre that are just waiting to be discovered, and for the right person to find it and the right video to go viral about it, and we could change it all in a year or two's time from here. We just don't know. So that can be a topic for another time. That is something that other people have made videos on and dived into. But I want to, instead of being sad about that, instead of lamenting about it, I want us to go in search of them. And one of the things I will point out is that there is a fair bit of the ones on my list, at least, that I read them through KU, or I've found them because of my Instagram, or even not so much the TikToks, but from Instagram posts and from Facebook groups that I'm a part of. And I found them only because of online, right? I didn't pick them up in a used bookstore like some of the titles I did. So it is not impossible to still find these very deep and moving books in the historical subgenre from there. And that means if they're there and those authors are still writing, there's a chance that we can keep it going, right? I don't think historical romance will ever disappear, okay? It's in the recession, as I would call it, like a lot of other things have. And we're just waiting for the right thing to come up, right? So anyway, I've spent the first 8 minutes on that, but I just want to share, those are some of the thoughts that are on my heart right now. And, you know, I have a historical romance book club. Our book club just got revived in 2024 after we had to take a break for about 18 months just because of life and things. But we're planning to still keep going, and we're trying both old and new historical romances. We have a historical romance readathon that we'll be sharing soon. I won't spill the beans because I'm still working on the details and things like that, but coming very soon in the new year, as in it'll be in January, the Rake Appreciation Society will be having a readathon happen. So if you're someone who loves historical and you don't want to see it go anywhere, you know, use your purchasing power. You don't have to have a channel. You don't have to have an Instagram to do that. Use your purchasing power, your Kindle read to, you know, support that, right? And that's what I want to try to do too, because as we get into this, I have like kind of a sad confession to share. So here we go. As I said, I'm going to quickly go through ones that other people recommended. I actually own a few of them, and I think I have read all of these ones. I have read all of these ones that I own, but there's a lot that I haven't read that I want to get to next year then. And then we'll go through my top 10 that I have. So very excited about it. Okay, so the ones recommended by you guys, I did just put this one on my Instagram this time. So I didn't get a million of these. I got about 20 people putting theirs in. And there was 4 books that were mentioned multiple times, and there was a few authors that were mentioned multiple times. And this is where I said, like, a lot of them happened to be kind of like older ones. So the book that was mentioned the most was actually My Darling Duke by Stacey Reed. Absolute a favorite of mine as well. I actually reread this book in 2024 too, because I annotated this for a patron. So this was great to revisit this one. I love this story so much, so I absolutely understand why. Stacey Reid is amazing. She is someone who's still publishing, though she is definitely in a hybrid case, right? She's actually starting a publishing arm that will be publishing fantasy and historical, I believe, and they will be focusing on, I don't know if it's only focusing on authors of color, but I know that's obviously going to be a push for it. I've been asked to kind of like help with that. There's just been some delays because of some family things that have happened, but Stacey Reid is actually going to be like pushing that. But anyway, love Stacey Reid. She definitely, I understand why she's on this list. The Wickedness of a Highlander was mentioned multiple times. That one makes sense. This one was a new release this year. Elisa Braden has been pretty slow to get the Midnight in Scotland books out. A lot of that is due to her health, so that's not a thing of her being like not wanting to write anymore. It's part of a health. You might see this book again. We'll just say that. This was a new to me author, but she showed up 3 times, both a couple times in my Instagram question box, as well as I did directly ask a few of my friends some of their favorites. And Jesson from Jesson Reads Romance also said this one, which was Adjacent But Only Just by Nicole Van. Nicole Van showed up a few times in this, so I definitely want to try her out. Jesson said she is a bit hit and miss for her, but she really is enjoying this series. And Nicole Van is someone who's currently writing as well, so I want to look into that one. Then we have Destiny's Surrender by Beverly Jenkins, and I don't own a copy of this one, which is crazy to me. I literally own like all the other books in that series and quite a few, but I myself, I've only read 3 Beverly Jenkins, and I want to read more so badly. This is one of the greats who has not been asked to write a historical romance in a couple of years, and that is a crying shame. If Beverly Jenkins never writes another historical romance, we have been robbed, okay? She's being asked to pretty much only write contemporary right now, and it is a crying shame. It is a crying shame. We should be rioting in the streets, okay? But, so I haven't read this one. I don't have any, like, you know, but I have no doubt that it's wonderful, and I completely understand why she would be on the list for sure. We have Marrying Winterborn by Lisa Kleypas. Absolutely. I really do hope she has another book coming still, whether it's in this series or she's starting a spin-off series. I don't know. I did reread this book this year, but yeah, someone for their first time read Marrying Winterborn. The other Lisa Kleypas on this list is Mine Till Midnight. Also adore this one. I love the Hathaway series. Sorry, didn't want to say Hathaway. So definitely understand why those two are on there. There is The Beast Takes a Bride and My Season of Scandal by Julie Ann Long. I didn't read a Julie Ann Long this year. I've only read one book by her. I read it last year. Loved it. And both, I know Crystal and Jesson love this author so much. And I believe both of these books are in the current series of hers. Like, I think The Beast Takes a Bride was the most recent one. I'm not sure. But I really need to get through hers. I own quite a few of Julie Ann Long's because I've picked them up through the years. But I definitely want to read more of her because I've heard wonderful things. There is Isabella and the Rogue by Lana de la Rosa. I read quite a bit of Lana de la Rosa last year. I read her like Scandal series or whatever that one was called. I don't remember the series name, but I really liked it. And this is her current series that's going on that is being trad-pubbed. And the covers are all gorgeous. She writes some very diverse historical romance, but some of it is uniquely diverse. Like, I know in the series that I read, there was characters of different religions that were in there. And I really enjoyed that about that series for sure. But yeah, Isabella and the Rogue, I really need to try this series. It looks very good. We have a Kerrigan Byrne, All Scott and Bothered. Absolutely understand why she's on here. This is an author who hasn't put out a historical in a little while, though. I believe she's writing contemporary with someone. So that's kind of sad to me because she's written some of my favorites of all time. And that's very disappointing to me that she's not writing more right now. Very sad. Breaks my heart a little bit. Yours Till Dawn by Teresa Medeiros. I read this one last year. I've read 3 Teresa Medeiros at this point. She's definitely on my list of four of hers. Yeah. I definitely want to read more of hers. I do own quite a few. But is this one my favorite? It might be my favorite Teresa Medeiros. I like most of them I've read. We have When the Scot Ties the Knot by Tessa Dare. Totally love it. This is another author. Where is another book from her? What happened to her? Why have we not seen more from her? That is a travesty. Tessa Dare, though, just being honest, I don't think she writes anything incredibly groundbreaking, but she's also a gateway historical romance author for many. Okay, she's someone, I say this, she's someone who revitalized my interest in the series. I never stopped reading historical romance, right? I've been reading it since I was 14 years old. I didn't ever stop, but I had been reading a lot of other things. I've been reading YA romance or fantasy romance, and when I tried a Tessa Dare, it revitalized me so much about 5 or 6 years ago. And she's a gateway for so many people. If you ask people for introduction to historical romance, they're going to give you Tessa Dare because she's fun and quippy and quick and sexy, and she's all those things. So I love that she's on this list. Texas Destiny by Lorraine Heath. Love to see it. Absolutely. I love this whole series. Very beautiful. Lorraine Heath is someone who is still writing. Who's to say, though, if she will continue to be picked up by Avon? We don't know. I have an arc of hers I need to get to very soon. I love Lorraine Heath, and I want to keep reading her stories as long as I can. And I do have some backlist of hers to still read for sure, so I need to get to those. They're also from her, someone put When the Duke Was Wicked, and I cannot find my copy of When the Duke Was Wicked. I know I have it because I do own literally 95% of her books. I think I'm missing 2 of her historicals, and I don't know where I put that one. It's here somewhere. And then The Finest Print was mentioned a few times as well, and you will see that again shortly on my list. Spoiler alert, I love Erin Langston. So those were all the ones that others said were their favorite historicals of the year, and I love that. The thing, though, that is troubling to me, as I said, is there was only 4 of those that I haven't read before, which means there's a lot of repeats. There's not too many fresh ones being brought in, and that makes me sad. It makes me sad. I have gotten quite a few recs through my patrons as well as my book rec form that I have. So when I'm putting together more historicals I want to read, I definitely go through those lists to look for them too. But okay, let's get into my top 10 list, okay? So just a few tiny little stats before I go through my list here. This year, I read 38 historicals, okay? Only 22 of those were new to me historicals. That doesn't mean new to me authors, but it means it was a new read, whether old or a new release, whatever. So that's only about, I do a lot of rereading of historicals, obviously. A lot of that was for my Patreon. It was also rereading favorites. It was comfort reads, things like that. And a few arcs as well. No, wait, those would be repeats. Sorry. I read arcs in my new ones. But I only read 38 this year, which I know that's a good amount, but that only ends up averaging to about 3 a month. I don't know. I guess that's not horrible. I just know in years past that historical was almost equal to how much contemporary I've read, or it would be a quarter of it. And this year it's a 10th of it. And I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. It's not that I'm disappointed in me or anything, because I am a mood reader and I'm pulled towards those things. But as I've said throughout this video, or in the beginning of it, I think, our purchasing power is how we say what we love. And in my case, it isn't just purchasing power. It's also my social media presence. What am I recommending to people? What am I getting people excited about? I need to use that wisely in my thing as well. But again, it can't be false. I'm not going to hype up historicals that I don't feel earned it, which means I need to be finding ones that I love enough to hype up, if that makes sense. And it's been difficult to find ones that have got me too excited, and that makes me sad. But, so that, like I said, I read 22 new to me historicals. And I have been purposely trying to read a lot more new to me authors. So out of those 22 new historicals, I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them were new to me historical romance authors. So that feels pretty good to me, that of the new books I read, 10 of them were from new authors. So that's kind of cool. But let's go through my favorites list for you, okay? So I first have 2 honorable mentions, which these ones weren't 5-star reads. I actually didn't have any 6-star historicals this year, okay? That, of course, is no big deal. I'm not going to push a book to be 6 stars if it's not. But it is strange because in all other years, I've had at least 2 or 3 that made it up. So maybe I'm being too picky right now. I don't know. But that didn't give me a bit of pause. Maybe some of these that I liked, they should have been at a 6-star. I don't know. But it was strange to me that in making this top 10, I was able to put 2 books that were 4-star reads in my top 10. I don't know. Maybe it's because I read so many new to me authors, or I was trying new things. I don't know. Anyway, this type of video ends up being a lot of, discussing that. So for my honorable mentions here, there was In Like Flynn by Lauren Smith. So this was a pirate romance. It's actually the daughter of a pirate, and our hero is a naval officer who is supposed to go undercover on a pirate ship to be able to capture this, high up pirate. And our heroine is the captain of one of her father's ships. And so she is put in jail at the beginning of this book, and our hero gets put in jail beside her. And when there is a fake breakout that happens, he is able to look like a dashing hero and gets invited on the ship to travel with these pirates together. And he is trying to get to the place where her father is so he can take him down, right? So that is kind of what the setup of it is. And of course, they're going to fall in love during it. I enjoyed this one a lot. The audio was dual narration. And Shane East, I believe, did the hero's POV, so I really liked that. So this story wasn't perfect, but I had so much fun with it. I really think that if there was a word to describe Lauren Smith to me, it would be like fun and camp is how I would describe her historicals. So that's why when I looked at the books I had given 4 stars for historicals, this one, I don't know, I just want more people to read Lauren Smith. And she is still writing historicals, and she writes a lot of them. So definitely one to give a try to. The other honorable mention for me was Untouched by Anna Campbell. This is a gothic historical, and I read it for the Phantom Romance Readathon, and I enjoyed this so much. I believe this one was on KU too. I don't think I had to buy it. I think it was on KU. I don't know. But it was my first Anna Campbell, and I definitely will read more. But this was the one that was about the hero who has been declared mad by his uncle so that his uncle can continue to control the estate and control the money. And he's literally kept on this small estate with guards who will punish him if he gets too above his britches. And they try to force him to continue to seem mad or whatever. And to try to control him, the uncle has the goons kidnap who they think is a prostitute, because this man has never been able to be with a woman. He's been trapped on this estate since he was 14, so he's still a virgin, and they think that if they can get him pussy whipped, basically, I'm saying it, that's what they want, they can get him pussy whipped and then control the woman, that they can control him. So our poor unsuspecting heroine, who's actually a widow, who's trying to make her way to some family she has, she gets kidnapped and brought to this estate, and the hero is very cruel to her to begin with because he thinks she's in on the game, and she's like, I'm not a prostitute, I'm a widow, I don't want any part of this. But then the evil uncle threatens her, then says, well, if you're not here to help, then I'm gonna kill you. So if you don't start sleeping with my nephew and get him to do what I want, it's gonna be done for you. So she's in a tight spot, we'll just say. So this story was just very thrilling, and though it has some very like over the top parts, it also has, this one has some trigger warnings, so definitely look into those, especially the mental health side of it and everything. But I enjoyed this a lot. So it wasn't perfect. It was a 4-star read, as I said, but definitely an honorable mention, and I want to read more Anna Campbell after reading this. Okay, now for the rest of these, though, I'm just going in the order that I read them. They're all 5 stars, the rest of these ones. So we're just going to go from the beginning of the year until the most, like, recent one that I read, okay? So there was Bed Me Earl by Felicity Niven. This was the, like, second, or was it the first Felicity? This might have been the first one. I did read another after, no, I read the first one in December of last year, and I read this one like the first week of January. So like, yeah. But she was new to me just a couple weeks before. So this one I loved because the heroine was a bit neurodivergent. She was also like very tall, and like she's a virgin, but she very much wants to be experimenting with some things. And our hero's a bit of he's not an idiot, but he's a bit of a ne'er-do-well. And a bit of a like wastrel in a certain way, but when these two hook up with each other, he kind of falls for her. But again, because of her bit of neurodivergence, she's not really in like a hurry to be married and have kids or anything. So our hero ends up being the one really like pursuing her and trying to convince her that he cares about her. So it's definitely he falls first, pining hero. And then our heroine is just, you know, neurodivergent, different. She's very tall. I love that. And this was just a really fun one. It's very spicy. Some very good spicy scenes in here. I know that word, I'm losing my desire to use that word, but it's true. There's some good smut. Let's just say it. There's good sex scenes in here. All right, there was A Substitute Wife for the Prize Fighter by Alice Coldbreath. This was actually the second book in the series, and the first book was just okay, but this one, I loved this one, right? So this one is Lizzie Anderson, and she's in a bit of trouble. She ends up getting kind of like disowned by her family and getting thrown out into the streets. And there is Benedict Toombs, who in the beginning of this, he's actually engaged to her cousin, and he doesn't have the best, you know, view of Lizzie. But when he sees the thing that she does that gets her thrown out, it really changes his mind about the family. But the thing is, he's already has like the papers to marry Lizzie's cousin, who her name is also Elizabeth Anderson. So this is where the substitute wife part comes in, is because he breaks his engagement with Elizabeth and he convinces Lizzie to marry him because her name is already on the document and she has nowhere to go. Like, she's gonna end up, she is destitute. She is like hard for her to find a job. She doesn't have any skills. She doesn't have any references. She's just been thrown out on her ear, basically. And so he convinces her to marry him, and he maybe is a bit smug and vindictive about it, but he also, there's some mutual pining going on. And the thing is, he is also a part of the, I showed this picture, the Toombs Brothers boxing booth, which is a part of this traveling fair. And so once she gets married to him, she's put into this little wagon with him that travels with this fair. And she has to find her place within this fair and find her place within this marriage. And I love it. This book does have a lot of those like misunderstandings where the people think the other person thinks the worst of them. But the way that it plays out in this story, because of the time period and because of the setting, that all is contextual. None of that is impossible to be happening, so it isn't as frustrating as some misunderstanding stories are. So really enjoying that. I still need to read the last book in that series, and I really enjoy it a lot. So thank you actually to one of my patrons, Megan, who sent me those books. I literally love it. It's so good. That series is great. Okay, then I read The Wickedness of the Highlander. told you we'd see this one again. This was such a fun time. It really was, to get back into this series. I've been really looking forward to this pairing. Thank you to Jennifer M, who actually sent me this copy of this. And it was great to read a new Elisa Braden. Now, when I compare it to other books within the series, it's not my favorite one. That's why, you know, I've given other books by her 6 stars. I do feel like she went a bit heavy-handed in certain aspects of this one, but she still has the really great Scottish parts in here and the atmosphere. And this one is also like an enemies to lovers. This is Alexander McPherson, and we have Sabella Lockhart, who she is the sister of this really like bad dude from earlier in the series, and so he thinks really poorly of her, and she ends up being basically like a maid for him, or a housekeeper, and he doesn't exactly treat her the best to start with, but he also is then like, well, she needs to marry me. And so this is one where he kind of pushes her into a marriage with him pretty early on into the story anyway. But I love Elisa Braden's books, so it still ends up on a favorite list, even if it's not my favorite of this series. And I think we have just one more in this series coming still. Like, I think there's still, yeah, The Love, here it is. It says in the back here, book 5 will be The Love of a Highlander. We don't know when we're getting this one, but hopefully it's this year. Hopefully she's feeling better and we'll get more. Okay, then we have Aurelia by Minerva Spencer, and this one was book 4 in the Bellamy Sisters, and I love Minerva Spencer. She actually is back-to-back on here. I have another one of her books to share in a minute, but the Bellamy Sisters series is just really special to me, and this book, though, isn't as strong to me as, like, what was the one right before? Yes, Selena was just before this one. That one was so good. This one, the thing is this one, she was inspired by kind of like some gothic stories. And she says in the author's notes that she wanted to tell the story where it's one where like it has those gothic vibes where the hero actually travels a lot. So there'll be these like, there was actually a lot of Jane Eyre vibes in this one, which is probably why I did like it quite a bit. And so we get small bursts of them together, and then he's traveling. And we see them have an intense moment, and then he's traveling. So she's actually, and this book takes place throughout the other 3 books, because Aurelia is the oldest of the Bellamy siblings, and she was actually like kind of disowned because she goes and gets a job. How dare she, even though her family is like destitute basically when the series starts, right? So during the time that she's working for this guy, she is actually an artist, and she is working on doing the art for a like naturalist book that he's putting together. So he's kind of like a scientist and a traveler and everything, and so he has all of these different like animals and insects and creatures that she's taking the explanations that he has and making drawings of them for a book he's putting together, which is kind of cool, but it's a long-term kind of job basically. And so while she's there is actually when Phoebe and dang it, why do I keep forgetting everyone's names? Phoebe and Hyacinth and Selena, when they're all getting married. So when she left home, the family was destitute and not doing well. Well, in that time, her 3 of her younger sisters were all married very well. So by the time she's done with this job, her family's in a much better place, which is good. And her siblings no longer need to listen to their parents tell them not to speak with her because they are of higher rank than their parents now. But anyway, where was I going with this? The author wanted this to be in a gothic way of as like the heroine actually falls for the hero during a lot of the times when he's away, because she learns things about him while he's gone, and then he'll be there and they'll interact. So for me, that means I wanted more of the couple together, but I still thought the story was told very well. Now, I'm hoping to squeeze in a very Bellamy Christmas before the end of the year, because it did come out, I think, in October. I'm behind on getting to it, unfortunately. It's been a very busy year. But that book actually has, like, we get to see all of the previous couples, and it's a full-length book. So there's a love story that's separate from them, but we also get to see them. And then there's going to be, I guess, 3 more books to the series still, because we're going to get Catherine and we're going to get Dottie. And then we're actually going to get, I can't remember her name, but it's actually the niece of the hero from Phoebe is going to get a book too. So she has a lot planned for that. All right. Now the other book from Minerva Spencer is The Villain by S.M. LaViolette. And I'm very happy because she's going to be writing, I think she said she has plans for 3 more books in this series too. I love to see it. Keep writing them for me. But this was one, I've been talking about this book all freaking year. I love this. And this is, if there's books on this list, there are 2 or 3 of them that I would possibly like have higher up, you know, maybe give them more stars. I don't know. This is one of them I might do that with someday because I want to reread this one completely. I don't have the time to right now, but she usually puts out audiobooks for the series, for the books eventually, so I may reread it once there's an audio. But this one is the one that has a like neurodivergent hero. He's psychopathic, and he's also a hitman. And he also has some deviant tastes. And our heroine has actually been forced into prostitution when her father died. But she very much has a plan. Like, she is saving enough money to be able to, I think, go to America, the colony she wants to be able to go to. I don't know what year this is in. It's probably America completely. Let me see. What year is this one in? Oh, yes, it's America. Yeah, 1871. It's America by now. But she ends up getting the money that she saved stolen from her, and so now she has no chance. And she ends up getting the opportunity to work for the hero for like a weekend. And she ends up playing some games with him, like literally. She plays a game of chess with him, and first she loses to him, and he's like, "You lost to me on purpose." And she's like, "Well, I didn't want you to be mad." And he's like, "No, don't do that." And she beats him. And so he decides to keep her around because not only does she please him sexually, but she pleases his mind when they do this. So he's only going to be in London for a certain amount of time because he's on a job. And he's like, "You can work for me for the time that you do, and then basically she'll have enough money that she'll be able to go to America by the end." But the thing is, when a psychopath has you in his sights, in his hands, he may decide that he wants you a little too much to let you just go on your merry way at the end. So this has so many aspects of dark romance that I love, while also being historically set. And that is something that Minerva Spencer, when she is under the S.M. LaViolette name, does so well. It's why the Victorian Decadent series is so good for me. And this is an erotic historical romance, and it is excellent. Very good. Okay, we have The Marquis Who Mustn't by Courtney Milan. This was a book that I read for Rake Appreciation Society for our summer session. And Crystal loved this one, and I liked it a lot. It gave me a lot of warm, fuzzy feelings. Courtney Milan wrote this very slow, beautiful romance in here, while having fabulous side characters, while having beautiful conversations between them. And this is a like fake dating situation, or like fake fiance. And we have Kai, who his father had actually screwed over this village, in a very like horrible way. He stole a lot of money, and Kai is basically back to make amends. Now, the village is very suspicious of him. They don't trust him. And so while he's there, he ends up being fake engaged to Naomi, even though they were real engaged when they were children. That has, you know, kind of been considered null and void because, again, the father lied to all of them. But she goes along with it because she wants to take ambulance classes, which is kind of like first responder or like nursing classes, and women weren't allowed to do that. And Kai agrees to help her be able to have those classes, and she agrees to be his fake fiance so that people will kind of like leave him alone a little bit while he's there. But he's only ever planning to be there for a certain amount of time, because he's going to commit a fraud and then flee the country. Now, you don't know what kind of fraud or who he will be perpetrating the fraud against, but let's just say pottery is involved. A certain style of making pottery is involved, and I love this story. And in fact, it actually has a epilogue that takes place in 1954 in London, and I cried in a really beautiful way. I really did. And this is the book, I joke, but I'm going to say it. I personally, in my own mind, this book exists in the same world as the Mackenzie series by Jennifer Ashley, because the type of pottery that Kai does, I think Ian would like it. And it's my own headcanon, okay? It doesn't really exist, but it does in my head. So anyway, this book just means a lot to me, particularly because it was like our first Rake Appreciation Society back at it. And I just love Courtney Milan's books. Even the ones of hers that I don't love, she still touches me so much with the stories. And I do love most of them, but even the ones I don't, I'm very moved by them, and I wish more people read her books. And she even has another one out after this one called The Earl Who Isn't, and I definitely want to get to that soon because wonderful. All right, just a couple left to talk about. So for another one we have is The Finest Print by Erin Langston. This was marvelous, and this was actually about, how did I play this out? Whose child was this again? So yeah, this is actually the daughter of the hero from one of the novellas. That's right. This is actually the niece from Forever Your Rogue. And yeah, I like that. So it's not directly like in a series or anything, but we do get some lovely cameos from that, which is great. So this one is she's the daughter of basically like a judge in that time, and she wants to write mystery novels. And in the very beginning of the story, she's actually engaged to basically like kind of a consummate police officer, detective, whatever he is. And he very much is trying to like tamp down on her dreams. And she says, screw you, I don't need this. She ends the engagement. But now she's a bit of a social pariah, and she is a spinster for sure. Then we have our hero, Ethan, who actually comes from America because he's inherited a like printing business, only to find out that it's deeply in debt. And so he gave up his life in America to come have to deal with these debts. And these two end up meeting up and coming up with a scheme to try to get the business solvent as well as start making money. Otherwise, he's going to need to give up and sell the business and move back to America. And so they start by writing kind of these short detective stories is what they end up doing. And she uses some of her info she receives from watching proceedings at the court to kind of use to tell the stories. And so this is a beautiful relationship between the two of them. And as always, Erin Langston writes an absolutely swoony and beautiful romance. It didn't quite match Forever Your Rogue to me. There was just some seriously, I mean, that book is perfect. Okay, it's perfect. So I'm only holding her against herself is the thing, but to many other people, this is a 6-star read, and it was a 5-star read to me. I don't have tons of criticism for it. It's beautiful. Erin Langston to me is as good an author as any historical author I've read, and I really hope that she continues to do her indie publishing. And see, and this is the thing, is if publishers were looking for indie historical romance authors the way they are for contemporary, she would be getting a deal. Like, it's a crime to me that Forever Your Rogue doesn't. So all I can do is keep talking about her in my own little corner of everything. All right. Now, the last one I want to mention, I did read for my Patreon, and normally I don't go into like great details about my like thoughts on those. But since this isn't really a review, I'm just telling you it's on the list. I'll share it here. But if you would like my full thoughts on this book I'm going to talk about, it is available on my Patreon, and you'll be able to listen to my review on the free tier if you join, and do like a free trial with it there. But anyway, shameless plug. I don't care. And that is Heart in the Highlands by Heidi Kimball. And this was the one I read I think I read it in September. At this point, it was September, October. Probably was October, actually. And I had been wanting to read this one, but I was also nervous to read this one. And honestly, not because it is a closed door. It is a closed door. That wasn't why. I was nervous because of the religious elements I've been hearing about. I knew that this is a bit more of like an inspirational kind of situation, which I don't mind reading, but I get nervous sometimes because you know, if you don't have the exact same beliefs as someone and you're reading like, it can be difficult. But I can tell you quite easily that though the theme of this story is forgiveness, it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to be religious for that. You'll see the themes of forgiveness, they stand on their own. Forgiveness is something that's hard for us and important for us, no matter, you know, who we are, where we are. But this is really beautiful. This is an arranged marriage. And the day after this arranged marriage, the night after this couple has consummated their marriage, the hero, he leaves because he feels that he gave in to his father to have this arranged marriage, and his father betrays him, and he says, F you, and he leaves because he's like, I'm not going to become who you want me to become. But the thing is, he now has a bride who he has left pregnant when he left her. And many years later, not many, but a few years later now, he comes home because his father is dead, and now he is the head of the family, and he discovers what he left behind, and he realizes how much wrong he did by trying to stick it to his father. He ruined something very precious, and he hasn't been able to watch his daughter grow up, and that's heartbreaking, you know. So yeah, this story is a lot about forgiveness. Will this woman, Katie, be able to forgive him? Should she forgive him? And even if she can't make him leave again, should she let him into her heart again, is the question. So this was very powerful. And again, forgiveness is something really beautiful to read about. You know, you guys been around a long time. This was the first tattoo I ever got, and it still is very powerful to me. So this has to be on a favorites list. It was beautiful. And again, I don't think you yourself need to be religious to get that out of it, because it's not shoved down your throat. No more is religion mentioned in here than it is in some medieval historicals or others we've read. It's just very intentionally used in this one. And it was very touching and beautiful. And again, it's a closed door story, but it doesn't need more than that. It's still romantic and sweet. So it does a great job telling the story with it. So anyway, so there we go. This was my long discussion about the historical romances read in 2024, both your favorites and mine. I'm really looking forward to reading more in 2025. As I said, we're going to start the year off right with a readathon, so keep your eyes out for that. We'll have more about it soon. But it'll be it's in January is what I'll just say. It's in January. Don't have the details all hammered out yet. But I want to start the year off right and start in the mood for it. And I want to find even greater stories. I've read some fantastic ones this year, and I want to find even more. I have so many on my Kindle. I have so many with my eyes on it. And if I want, you know, I just take it on personally myself. If I want historical romance to keep going, and I know that I have a voice, and not only that, I have viewers who love historical romance. We have to be responsible to help it keep going on ourselves too, and not just wait for publishers to do it, because publishers are only going to do what we're paying for, right? The reason why those contemporary authors get picked up is because those books went semi-viral, and they're like, oh, if we publish this person, we'll make money. And we need to make it make sense for them to do that for historical romance authors. The only thing is, though, is that a lot of people who read historical romance aren't the loud ones on social media, you know, or they've been reading it for 30, 40 years, and you see no need to do that. But what you can do is use your purchasing power that we do have. So anyway, that is not a admonishment. It's a reminder for myself, and hopefully an encouragement to other people that historical romance is not dead. It's not going to be gone. We might be in a recession of it, but good things still happen during recessions, because after that, we can have a renaissance of it. And that makes me really excited, because the circles that this stuff goes in, it may be a couple years, but it's not forever. I won't be gone by the time it happens. And there'll then be a whole new generation of the people excited about it. And we'll probably have to go through a lot of the same things that we go through when that happens, but it's exciting. So thank you so much for watching this. If you made it all the way to the end, why don't you give me a clock emoji to show passing of time or something? I don't know. Let's do that. I deeply appreciate you for watching my channel and supporting me here. And I hope you have a wonderful day and a blessed December. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.